It only takes a split second for the world to change forever. And for 12-year-old Lucy Fields, that moment came with the deafening crack of a gunshot. As she walked alongside her loyal German shepherd, Max, through the quiet suburban streets, the sun shining through the trees, her life exploded in an instant. The gunshot rang out, a sharp sound that shattered the peaceful afternoon. Max crumpled to the ground, blood staining his silver-tipped coat as Lucy dropped to her knees. Her hands pressed desperately against his wound. Her heart pounded in her chest as disbelief took hold. How could this happen? Her protector, her best friend, was gone in an instant. Lucy's scream echoed, raw and primal, as her world collapsed around her. In the blink of an eye, Lucy Fields' world shifted from a peaceful suburban afternoon to pure, unthinkable chaos. It was supposed to be just another walk with Max, her loyal German shepherd. The sun poured down through the trees, casting dappled shadows across the sidewalk. But then, everything changed. A single gunshot shattered the stillness, cracking the calm of Oak Ridge in a way that would echo forever in Lucy's mind. She had no time to process what happened before she saw Max crumple to the ground, his beautiful silver-tipped coat blooming with blood. The street, once quiet, was now filled with noise. Max's agonizing cry, her own frantic scream, and the officer standing there, still holding his weapon, his face as impassive as stone. Lucy's small hands pressed against the wound, her breath coming in ragged gasps, her body trembling in disbelief. The man who had just taken the life of her beloved dog was speaking, his voice cold, indifferent. The dog was aggressive, he said, ignoring the raw pain in her eyes. In that moment, everything felt surreal. This wasn't just an accident. It was something much darker. The officers were supposed to protect her, yet here they were, the source of her agony. And just as Lucy's world seemed to collapse in on itself, no one noticed the elderly woman across the street, quietly dialing a number that would soon reach her father, Thomas Fields, a man whose career in Delta Force had been built on protecting lives. But for his daughter, this moment would set in motion a devastating chain of events. There's a kind of grief that's so heavy, so suffocating, it feels like you're drowning in it. This was the kind of grief Lucy Fields had known for the past 2 years. After losing her mother to cancer, Lucy had retreated into a world of silence, a world where words no longer had the power to comfort her. Her mother, Eleanor, had been the light of her life, her guiding star in a world that had always felt uncertain. When she died, that light went out, leaving behind a darkness Lucy had struggled to navigate. But then came Max, her protector, her companion, the one thing that could still reach her, even when everything else felt like it was slipping through her fingers. Max had been a gift from her father, Thomas Fields, a decorated military veteran who knew the weight of loss better than anyone. A German shepherd, trained for the military, Max became Lucy's anchor, the one constant in a world that seemed determined to break her. In the months after Eleanor's death, Max had been more than just a dog. He was a lifeline. He stood guard by her side, knew when she was struggling, and offered the kind of love that didn't need words. Max had been the only thing that helped her sleep through the nightmares, the one who sat at the foot of her bed when her mind was too restless. With him, she had begun to heal, slowly, but now, in the blink of an eye, that healing was shattered. Max, her unwavering protector, was gone. The gunshot had stolen him from her, and with him, a piece of Lucy herself was lost forever. In the moments following Max's death, the world around Lucy Fields seemed to warp, twisting and bending into something unrecognizable. The police officers, the ones who were supposed to protect her, stood there, indifferent to her anguish. Officer Calloway, the older one with a cold, calculating demeanor, said the words that would haunt Lucy forever. The dog was aggressive. His voice was flat, devoid of any empathy. She had just watched her dog, her best friend, her protector, die in front of her, and this man was standing there, justifying it as if it was nothing more than a routine call. The second officer, Miller, said nothing but stood still, the smoke still curling from his weapon, his eyes cold and unreadable. They didn't see her pain. They didn't see the way Max had been standing between her and the officer. A protective stance, not an aggressive one. But in their eyes, Max was just a threat, a nuisance. And Lucy, she was just a child. Her heart shattered all over again as Officer Calloway brushed off her sobs, his hand resting casually on his holster as if he had done no wrong. The world around her, which had already been so fragile, now felt like it was slipping away altogether. The system, the one she had been taught to trust, had just turned its back on her in the cruelest of ways. It wasn't just her dog they had taken from her. It was her trust, her safety, and her sense of justice. And in the distance, unseen by the officers, an elderly woman was watching, dialing a number that would bring Lucy's father, Commander Thomas Fields, back home to fight a battle far greater than he ever expected. The anger that seethed within Commander Thomas Fields was a quiet storm, a simmering fury that had been honed over years of military service. But this was different. When he got the call, when the world told him that his daughter's dog had been gunned down by the very people sworn to protect her, his military training kicked in, but so did something deeper, something primal. His first instinct was to destroy, to dismantle the system that had failed his child, but he knew that wasn't the way. It never had been. He had spent years in the most dangerous corners of the world, and what had he learned? That vengeance, no matter how sweet, only hollowed you out in the end. But that didn't mean he would sit by and let those who had taken everything from his daughter get away unscathed. As the days passed, he observed them, the officers who had stolen his peace, his daughter's safety, and her sense of justice. Calloway with his arrogance and Miller with his cold indifference. Together, they had crushed a little girl's heart, but it was more than just a pet they had taken. They had wounded the spirit of an innocent child who had already faced too much loss. Lucy's mother, Eleanor, had already stolen away from them, leaving a hole in their world that Max had slowly but surely begun to fill. Max was more than just a dog. He was the glue holding them together in a world that had become cold and unkind. But Commander Fields wasn't going to let them destroy that too. He would fight back, not just for justice, but for Lucy's broken spirit. She would get her life back, and he would ensure that no one ever took her trust or her peace again. In the dead of night, as the world slept, Commander Thomas Fields made a promise to himself and to his daughter that nothing, no matter how deep the wound, would ever break their bond again. Every day since the shooting of Max, Thomas had been consumed by a singular mission: to ensure those responsible faced the consequences of their actions. But the legal system, slow and broken, wasn't moving fast enough. Each day, Lucy grew quieter, more withdrawn, and the nightmares continued to haunt her. The child who once filled notebooks with dreams of the stars now barely spoke at all, her once bright eyes dimmed by grief and trauma. In the military, Thomas had been trained for conflict, but this, the terror in his daughter's eyes, the sense of helplessness in her voice when she spoke of Max's death, was a battle he wasn't prepared for. He had fought wars, confronted enemies, but this felt different. It wasn't just about justice anymore. It was about the restoration of what had been lost, the security, the trust, the love that had been shattered by one single, senseless act. As the days passed, Thomas dug deeper into the officers' pasts, uncovering patterns of misconduct that pointed to something far darker, An abuse of power not just in this incident but across the entire department. He wasn't just fighting for justice for Max, but for the future of his family. And with every piece of evidence he gathered, he felt a glimmer of hope. He was getting closer. Justice would come. And when it did, it would heal not just the wounds of that day, but the scars that had been building for far too long. The day the phone call came, Thomas Fields knew that the war he had been fighting for his daughter was about to reach its most dangerous stage. The officer who had been in the parking lot during the shooting of Max had finally decided to do the right thing. Officer Thomas Parker, young and conflicted, had stepped forward with information that could bring down the officers who had torn his family apart. But the risks he was taking were enormous. By coming forward, Parker wasn't just jeopardizing his career. He was going up against a system that had been protecting these officers for years. The thin blue line was no myth. Yet, something in Parker's conscience had broken. He couldn't live with the lies any longer. He had seen the pain in Lucy's eyes when they brought her in for questioning at the police station, heard the screams of that little girl pleading for help as Max lay dying in her arms. But as much as Thomas appreciated Parker's courage, he knew the danger wasn't over. The system was more powerful than Parker realized, and those two officers, Calloway and Miller, had made it clear they would stop at nothing to cover their tracks. But Thomas wouldn't back down, not this time. He would fight for the truth, for justice, and for his daughter. As he prepared to meet Parker in a secluded coffee shop, a wave of cold determination washed over him. This wasn't just about Max anymore. It was about everything he had ever stood for: honor, loyalty, and protecting his family at any cost. The story of Thomas Fields and his daughter Lucy teaches us that true justice isn't always about immediate retribution, but about the courage to stand firm in the face of wrongdoing. It's a reminder that our actions, especially in moments of deep grief, define our character. Despite the broken systems and the darkness that can cloud our path, the fight for truth, honor, and love must always persist. We are reminded that the protection of those we love, whether through action or simply standing by them, can heal wounds that seem impossible to mend. Sometimes the greatest strength lies in patience, resilience, and unwavering determination.